ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Let's talk about loneliness. 1 in 3 Australians face this pressing public health concern. It's recognised by the World Health Organisation, which has highlighted its widespread impact on physical and mental well-being. Australians battling loneliness face some pretty confronting odds. They're 4 times more likely to suffer from chronic disease, more than 4.5 times more prone to depression, more than 4 times more susceptible to social anxiety, and more than 5 times more likely to endure overall poorer well-being. Amongst the most vulnerable are lonely Australians aged 65 and over, but young adults aged 18 to 24 are also deeply affected. And there's also a hefty economic burden. It's estimated at more than $2.5 billion in costs to the economy, in health concerns, in care and others. So tonight, an examination of the effects of loneliness, the causes, and what research is showing as ways of dealing with us. Joining us tonight, we have Dr. Rosanne Freak-Poli. Rosanne is the Senior Research Fellow at Big Data Epidemiology and Prevention Division at the School of Clinical Sciences at Monash University. Now, she's a recognised world expert in loneliness research. Rosanne, good evening to you. Welcome to Nightlife.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's terrific that we have your time. Also with us, Michelle Lim. Michelle is an associate professor who leads the Social Health and Wellbeing Group at the University of Sydney in their prevention research collaboration. She's also the CEO of Ending Loneliness Together, an organisation. So, Michelle, good evening to you and welcome to Nightlife.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
Tell us about what your experience has been as well, and your techniques and strategies that have worked for you. Rosanne, can I begin with you? What is it anyway? We talk about it, but is there any agreement on what it is?
In general, it's a negative feeling related to companionship. So it can be described as a difference between what someone wants and what someone perceives that they currently have in terms of the quantity, or which is the frequency of how often you see people, as well as the quality. That's about how close we feel to the people that we're interacting with.
So it's not, we don't talk about it in terms of, hours per week, or we can't put a number on it. It's just it's clearly a subjective thing that people feel.
It's extremely subjective, and we do tend to ask on how many days have you felt lonely when we're asking this from an epidemiological perspective. As I will talk a bit later, we aren't concerned necessarily with people being lonely 1 or 2 days a week. We believe that experiencing loneliness is an unfortunate but inevitable part of being human. It's like a part of the human condition. It's when it's more severe or long-term that would be a concern for your health.
You've led collaborations at Monash University where older Australians are engaged in combating. And tell us about older Australians' experience of loneliness. Is it a peculiar problem for older people? Are they the group of most concern?
From my research, I believe so. At Monash University, I'm working with Dr. Barbara Benosa-Nerves, who's found that lonely Australians, older Australians, often describe the situation as feeling abandoned, rejected and left to die, which is sort of a terrible feeling. We know that later in life is a time of unwanted change, maybe having to stop work earlier than expected, downsizing, relocation of suburb or neighbourhoods, which obviously, if you've lived there for a long time, you may have social connections that then are hard to maintain, as well as declining health and loss of close friends and partners. These are all just some things that can happen later in life that increase the risk of feeling lonely.
Is it, Michelle, a new problem or not? I guess it's
loneliness,
not.
Loneliness is an experience that we've always had, and I think what's happened in the last 20 years is this robust scientific evidence that basically has said to us if we experience it in either severe form or in a kind of much more long-term experience, it actually does cause us kind of more physiological stresses and kind of more mental health consequences. So it's really now that we're just starting to pay attention to the hard evidence that loneliness is just as bad for you as living alone or social isolation, which is a different phenomenon. So, this subjective feeling that you don't have those relationships is just as bad for you.
And there are, I presume, to both of you, degrees of this in quite sharp ways, aren't there? Rosanne, maybe you first.
That's right. We have seen, I look at large cohorts of people and we see patterns. So there are people that can feel lonely for a very long time, at even small amounts can be. So if they're feeling lonely 3 days a week for a long time, that could be bad for your health. But also if you're having severe loneliness every day for a shorter period, like 6 months, that's also going to impact your health.
Michelle, what do you think about that?
We do know that, in some big epidemiological data sets, around 34% of people would endorse feeling lonely, but about 17% experience what we call chronic loneliness, which is loneliness that we experience at least in 2 consecutive years. So we do know that if you do experience the kind of more persistent levels, they actually use much worse outcomes for you. So those persistent, and it could be low grade, doesn't actually have to be intense, but that long-term experience means worse outcomes for the person.
Why are young people experiencing loneliness? This is supposed to be your peak time for hanging out with people, isn't it? Michelle?
Yeah, so this is actually the data that we found at the State of the Nation report in 2023, which you mentioned. It's actually very consistent with international data that we're looking at. So in terms of why young people, there's also a co-occurring or emerging mental health issues during that time. But young people, in particular 18 to 24, are really just trying to find their way and navigate through many social challenges and going through quite a critical social transition. And often they're really finding their social identity. They're trying to work with new friendship groups that might not be of their same age. They're going into things like employment, university. Their friendship groups have really shifted quite dramatically. So they are really particularly vulnerable and have to learn to navigate these social challenges. But that's really very similar to other age groups as well. But for young people in particular, it's that social transition that perhaps they might need more support on.
Rosanne, I was discussing this with someone today and they said, the problem with young people today is they don't talk to anybody, they just text everyone. Which, I said, no, it's way more complicated than that, I'm sure. To what degree, though, is the interaction with the digital world contributing to loneliness, do you think?
Well, early on when the technical advances came about, it was actually really great for people who felt marginalised or in, for instance, LGBTQI plus communities who may needed to find support online. So there are a lot of minority groups that would benefit and in a way, the opposite of loneliness. They're is preventing loneliness in these groups. But I think I'm not sure about the data overall, if it's good or bad. I believe that looking at how people interact online, it's really hard for older people to keep up with that technology. So it's actually then causing a drift between communication with their younger family members, and I think that's something that could be a possibility is improving the tech savviness of older people to be able to communicate with the family and friends in their lives.
Kim from Parramatta, just back on young people. Yes, Kim?
Yeah, hi. Listen, I do art. I worked for a long time in the courtroom and so forth, but, the last 7 years I've been working as an artist sort of thing. But I'm really intrigued as to the social media aspects to it all. Now, social media is pretty good because it gives you instant connection to the world. Yeah. And, of course, you're hearing lots of versions of the world as spoken by other people. A lot of it's cut and paste, and you'll notice that there's actually a lot of lack of investigation in relation to, well, is that true or whatever. So really, it's the disconnect to the reality of the world, because you're seeing the world through a screen. When you just look out the window, there it is. So I think it's a lack of discovery, a lack of connecting with nature and walking out and smelling the roses and this type of thing. And when you're stuck in this constant iPhone sort of trying to say entropy, you're sort of connected to a disordered world, a lot of strange ideas. They hang on to that, some connect to it, and they'll sort of connect to it without actually finding out things for yourself. That is, hey, what's the purpose of life? And what's my purpose in life? So really it's about self-discovery and, getting rid of perhaps the social media aspects, which is free because, once upon a time the media was controlled by the print media. Now it's everyone can have their 2 bubs worth. And all these ideas are coming from all over the place. So no wonder they're a little bit confused and suffering from anxiety because there's so many strange and instant ideas. So that's my point.
Yeah, I know, it's a point, isn't it? Thank you, Kim. Interesting. It is a point. Ross from Yoking. G'day, Ross.
G'day, mate. Thanks for the program.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm 76.
Yeah.
And
still a spring chicken, Ross. Well,
I'm lonely. My kids don't connect with me too much nowadays, unfortunately. And yeah, it's I've lost a lot of my friends because of my age, and yeah, I get lonely.
Have you adopted any strategies to deal with it, Ross? I mean, have you tried to meet people? What happens?
Yes, I have. I've tried to reconnect. You know what I'm saying? But I've got a couple of particular friends that I connect with regularly. But I've only just realised it in recent times. I've never ever recognised that I'm lonely. Now I haven't recognised it before. And so, yes, I do. I do try to reconnect, and I do try to go out and, meet people. But it's a really funny feeling. It's a really strange feeling, being lonely.
Yeah. Thanks, Ross. Thanks for sharing with us. To Roseanne and Michelle, to both of you, one of my texters says, did this study ask the question, do you understand the difference between feeling alone and immersing yourself in your own solitude? Michelle?
I'm not sure which study they're referring to, but just to define loneliness and being alone and solitude are all quite different things. And what we do know from the State of the Nation report is actually that people do get confused. People don't actually have a good understanding of what loneliness is versus what being alone is or solitude is. Solitude can sometimes come with a sense of recharge and peace. Being alone sometimes can come with levels of distress. But loneliness itself, you can be around people but still feel like you don't have those meaningful connections. What we did find, just very, kind of aligned with what Ross has said just now, is that people don't understand what loneliness is and what it's not. And there's a lot of stigma around loneliness. In fact, people don't readily identify themselves as lonely, and there's a lot of stigma and shame, and they're embarrassed to talk about it. So they tend to actually actively conceal loneliness, even if they felt lonely.
Roseanne, is it inevitable as you get older? In the sense that, I mean, this is what happens. Kids grow up and leave home. People die. Friends move away. You have arguments with friends and don't reconnect with them. And it's a process of losing people, not aggregating them. Is that to some degree an inevitable process?
Potentially inevitable. Depends how you see it. So we know, for instance, that people in aged care facilities, the rates are much higher. It's up to 60% of aged care residents feeling lonely. That means that 40% don't. So if we focus on some of the strategies, for instance, that are being employed for the people who are not feeling lonely, who are older in their own homes or in a residential aged care facility. And some of my suggestions have been included, for your listeners, is to start diversifying your friendship portfolio a bit. So have you got a friend that's 10 years older or 10 years younger than you? Also, actively inviting people to come out to do an activity with you can be difficult sometimes. Going to a group is a lot less burden. So, for instance, if you look up your local library or your neighbourhood house, they often have affordable options or free group activities that you can invite someone to come with you to that group activity, and you may meet more like-minded people. So it's not about necessarily one-on-one when we're trying to build a friendship group. It's looking for opportunities to meet a lot of people, because we're not going to get along with everyone that we meet. We're only going to get along with a few people. So we need to really get out there and meet a lot of people to find those few core connections. And when I'm talking about a few people, my research has shown that the number for older people is 4 relatives or close friends to discuss private matters with or call on for help. And if a friend or relative is both, then you can count them as double.
We've talked about this on the program before, Michelle and Rosanne, too, about what close friends are. Most people, I think, would be quite lucky if they had 2 or 3. A lot of people say they've got 1. Many people say they've got friends but no close friends. It's unusual for people to have a wide circle of close friends, isn't it, Rosanne?
Yes, as we go through our lives, we encounter different transient stages. For instance, depending on whether or not you choose to go to university after high school or even complete high school, where then when you have children, if you choose to have children, and then what type of work you do or not when you retire. All these things make a big difference with the groups of possible connections that you can make. And as you change, so does your friendship group. It's around every 7 years that you find that your friendship group does have a tendency to change dramatically. So if you think about yourself 7 years ago and your friends, you'll find that you'll probably have a few new ones. Keeping the number on 4, having at least 4, what I'm talking about is 4 friends that you can discuss private matters with or call on for help. So it doesn't have to be a bad help. Like if you need help moving, for instance, that could be considered a close friend. It's just that you feel comfortable enough to ask them for that sort of support in your life.
Yeah, interesting. Ross from Foster. G'day, Ross.
Hello, how are you?
Not bad.
I just wanted to talk about this whole principle your lady just touched on up there about what they call self-love.
Yeah.
Or respecting yourself, or valuing yourself, or forgiving yourself for perceived mistakes you made in your life or regrets that you have. Because I think a lot of people, like, they might say, oh, yes, well, I can go and join that group, but I don't know if those people want to talk to me. I don't know if I'd fit in. I don't know if I'm good enough or for them. And that all gets back to self-love, where you're not valuing yourself and you're not feeling good about yourself in that you can be a friend to someone else, or you can be a good conversationalist with someone else, or that people would find you interesting to talk to.
That's right.
And that all comes under the heading of loving yourself.
That's a hard thing, though. That's a hard thing, Ross, isn't it? You know, everyone knows the difficulty of walking into a room where you don't know anybody and making some progress with that. I mean, it's tough. I don't think that's easy for anyone.
Well, I think it is easier if you feel good about yourself, that you can walk up to someone and say, hello, my name's Ross, and how you going? And I mean, it's very simple. To meet people, the thing you do is to start talking about them. You know, what do you do? Why did you come here? Because people eventually like talking about themselves, telling you their story and that. And so I think if you feel good about yourself, you feel I can be a friend to that person, or I can be of interest to them, but that topic of self-respect and self-love isn't even talked about. Your speakers tonight haven't even mentioned it, and it's not something that people or authorities or experts have in their lexicon of ideas and concepts and philosophies, that they don't even talk about that subject of self-love or self-respect, and it should be put into the discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Interesting. Roseanne, you'd be on board with this, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. So I'm really glad you gave me this opportunity to talk about social prescribing, because I think that a lot of people out there, they don't know what resources or activities are available. They all are feeling a bit socially anxious, especially if they haven't had an opportunity to socialise in a while. Like it is hard to talk to people after a while of not going out. We talk about mothers who get isolated. There's a lot of people isolated in their own homes that aren't getting out as much as they need to keep up this communication. So I'll just let you know what social prescribing is. It's generally involves a trusted referrer, such as a healthcare worker, and what they do is they see that this person could benefit from improving their life or their quality of life, and they refer them to a link worker. The link worker then meets one-on-one with the person to create a personalised plan, something that looking at what's around them, what's easy to get to, what their interests are, and they identify opportunities and avenues to enhance their quality of life. Now, a lot of the time, it does involve social connection through group activities, and they give them the courage to go and start a new activity, and then they continue having follow-up appointments and talking about some of the things that if it worked out, how did it go, maybe try a different activity if that one's not working. In Australia, we do have the Australian Social Prescribing Institute of Health and Education. Social prescribing isn't everywhere at the moment in Australia, but it is worth giving your local neighbourhood house or council a call to see if they have a link worker. And if they don't, there are Australian-wide social activities that you can just go to that you're very welcome to go to. They're always looking for new people to come. So I've already mentioned the neighbourhood houses have affordable classes, educational classes. So it could be a cooking class, for instance. Public libraries often have one-off or reoccurring activities. It could be around increasing your use around the internet, for instance. There's Park Run, Heart Foundation, walking groups, and also local community councils have event calendars.
This is true. But libraries are wonderful resources, and I'd like to continue that conversation. I just want to welcome some other people to the program and to put together our big national audience here on Nightlife.
This is Nightlife with Phil Clark
on ABC Radio.
Yes, joining the program, this is Nightlife on ABC Radio. We're talking about loneliness with Professor Michelle Lim and Dr. Rosanne Freak-Poli from Monash University, Professor Lim from Sydney University, and the phenomenon of loneliness too. I love your contributions and calls too. And is it inevitable to some degree? It affects young people as well as old people. 1300 800 222 is my number. Rosanne and Michelle, Elizabeth in WA says, thanks for the lovely program. Here's a nice quote you might enjoy. Quote, as you grow old, you lose interest in sex, your friends drift away, your children often ignore you. There are many other advantages, of course, but these would seem to be the outstanding ones. Yeah, well, there's a truth, there's a hard truth in this, isn't there? Michelle, to you on this?
I believe we can make kind of informed decisions about how we age as well. And I do believe that older adults have a lot to give and a lot of wisdom, especially to help younger adults in understanding how to manage their social relationships. Older adults have a lot of wisdom and they know how to navigate the social landscape in many ways. They've kind of been through those social transitions, and that we have a lot to learn. You know, we shouldn't just see older adults as people who are victims of loneliness, and that we can actually learn and be mentored by older adults as well.
Jane from Newport's got a great idea. I hadn't heard of this. This is a great idea. Philip, the Heart Foundation has an excellent regular walking program. This is a national organisation. I recently joined my local group. It's been amazing. We meet 3 times a week. We go for an hour's walk, then have a coffee or lunch. It's totally voluntary. You can go wherever it suits you. No expectations whatsoever. I highly recommend looking up your local group on the Heart Foundation website. You meet people, you get exercise, you make friends, and also, I would add, you look after your ticker. An excellent idea, Rosanne.
Excellent. Yes, that's on the list of Australian-wide social activities, along with Park Run and, as I mentioned before, the local libraries, neighbourhood houses and your local council events.
Yeah, quite a few texters are texting about the Men's Shed movement too. Rosanne and Michelle. Michelle, you would have come across this, I'm sure, but this can vary in experiential quality, but I mean, for a lot of men, it's been life-changing, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Men's Sheds are an amazing organisation that allow men just to be in, just to have a safe space to connect. And there's a lot of different groups like that, and including for women, older women's networks as well. And, you know, it's important for us to kind of make those decisions to look for those things, because as Rosanne's saying, we have a lot of, diversity in what we need and what we have access to. The Ending Loneliness Together directory as well is very, very much available free online, where, you can really look at what's happening in your local area. Don't just try one thing. Try many different things and see what actually makes the most sense to you. Sure. Because it's really important that it's not just going to these things, but finding that meaningful connection is very much important. That will influence loneliness as opposed to just going to these things, because you could go to these things and really feel disconnected, or perhaps feel like you don't relate to anyone at those groups. So, trying a few things and trying to find your people and the people that you feel comfortable with. Sure,
exactly. Graham from Mount Gravatt. G'day, Graham.
Yeah, hi. Love the subject. All right. I find you ring a lot of establishments now, and I know what I'm talking about. A lot of them don't get back to you, or they give a number out, and they just you leave a message on the answering machine and no one gets back. This seems to be happening.
You're talking about organisations, are you here, Graham? Not people.
Organisations. I find that people and people don't want to call out these days. People don't want to come to your home, if I just find that. Okay. Yeah.
All right, mate. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it with us. Michael from Innisfail. Hello, Michael.
G'day, how are you?
Pretty good.
I've been married 50 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And I've been going with me wife 6 years on top of that, so that's 6 years. And she's in a nursing home now for the last 2 years with dementia.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Okay, so therefore, I go and see her every day.
Mm-hmm.
I feed her every night. And then I got to leave, say goodnight to her, then walk out of the nursing home, and then walk out and then drive on home, and then come to an empty house. Now, when I leave the nursing home, I kick every stone on the footpath, walk down to my vehicle because I'm crying. I've got friends that I talk to about it, and they're very good to me, but it's me only that's got to rectify or try to get out of that hole. And what I mean by that is that when you love someone for so long and work together from the day of 16 years of age, it is it's very hard to put it all behind you. And then when you buy them, say, lovely lingerie stuff, and it makes both parties happy, and yet when she's in the nursing home now, I'll say to her, I love you, and she'll say, I love you too. Then if I say to her, or she'll say, I miss you, and I'll say, I miss you too. We hold our hand together as soon as we meet and give a couple of good kisses. But dementia is a very hard thing.
It's a terrible thing, Michael, isn't it? The way, because it changes personalities and doesn't,
Yes, and what it is that they've got no stress because they with dementia, but like with me, my brain's good, so therefore I've got the stress because I've got to walk away and leave it, and yet it's so hard.
Yeah.
If you know where I'm coming from.
Yep, I do. I
don't know. I still work.
Yep.
But
you say you've still got some friends you can talk to about it.
Yeah, I got friends, and they have lost
What about other family, Michael?
Yes, I got other family, but unfortunately, when they're only 45, they don't understand what loneliness is because they haven't been through it. When you got a partner, when you come home to your house and you got a partner and your kids there, that's number one. But when you come home to your house in an empty house and turn the TV on, you just feel terrible because then you go to bed and you hop into bed. And then you're on the bed on your own, and then I listen to the Wilds, and that's how I got your program tonight, because I listen to this stuff every night.
Good on you. No, I know. I mean, Michael, thank you, and thanks for sharing it with us. I think a lot of people understand clearly the space you're in too, and the difficulties in front of you. Rosanne and Michelle, it's hard, isn't it, when you're on your own and dealing with this, because it's a shocking combination of loneliness and sadness and, lack of confidence in what's coming.
Yeah, and I think what Mike was also experiencing is intimate loneliness, which is very difficult to replace. No one can really replace, I guess, the grief and loss of someone you dearly love.
Yeah.
And his partner's he's watching her fade away, and you can't really comfort someone, other than reversing time. It's very difficult what he's going through. But there's also a lot of people going through that, where they're taking care of someone with chronic disease or taking care of someone who's ailing, and they're incredibly isolated, in addition to feeling lonely. Yeah. So, we need to, as a society, I think, be more empathetic. And I think that this is where we need to talk about loneliness a lot more, that your 45-year-old living at home with children, need to also look out for the community, look out for family, to understand that there are about 1 in 3 of us who do feel lonely.
Exactly.
So be someone in your network.
Yep. That is exactly it. Good luck, Michael. Thank you, and I appreciate the call. 1300 800 222. Keep listening to us too, Michael. I mean, I know we talk every night to a lot of people who live alone, and that's the joy of the Nightlife family too, in a way. Thanks to the texters texting in saying, all love to you, Michael. You're a gem and a cracking person. As well, Robin says here, Michael's story is so relevant, brought me tears. I agree with that. Kevin from Norseman. G'day, Kevin.
Yeah, good day there. It's been a while since ABC. I just want to speak about loneliness too. I'm a minister in Norseman, for those that are hearing me. So
I mean, you're a religious minister, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I grew up on the mission out here.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the people hearing me would know who I am. But loneliness, I've been alone in the last almost 2 years. And the first stage was, coming back to the house, on your own. And it's, you sit there and listen to the radio, and you listen to, some things that you'll try and reminisce on. But I'll find out is that on the weekends, I normally pick up on the weekend because I use my church as a home now. Yeah. My home is a church, so we come in. We get a lot of gathering of children and adults would come around here through the town, and I'd put on a feed for them and put on. Lots of stuff. We have a great sing-along. We sing the old hymns and all that there. But I find out through loneliness is that I've found out that instead of hanging on to that first stage, I try and get on to that next stage where you got to try and pick others up who are lonely.
Yep.
And try and help them and give them some sort of and it's all just...
How have you found attendance at church, Kevin? Is it... Because, almost everywhere it seems to be declining. What about where you are?
It's not declining here, it's growing. We get lots of children, we get teenagers, and we get... Sometimes this house is just jam-packed and I can't get enough people and kids. Every week we have a big mob in here. And we have a different strategy of how we change our church ways of how we do things. We still stick to the old hymns, the old rugged cross and all those songs, Jesus loves me. And the kids are really... they have a competition of how they want to sing. But through this loneliness, it's I find out is that I'm not alone, as a minister, but with the children that comes in with the other adults, they do encourage me. But that they've been a real help. Plus the people of Norseman here, they've been very good.
Good on. Thanks, Kevin. Good on you. Thanks for sharing that with us too. Interesting, Rosanne. Let's take another call just from Miriam from Ballarat. G'day, Miriam.
Hi, Phil. Just wanting to add to the list of community organisations that counteract loneliness. I belong to U3A.
Oh, the University of the Third Age.
University of the Third Age.
That's still going strong, isn't it? Yes.
It's going gangbusters.
My dear old dad used to go to that before he was struck down with dementia, and he said he used to love it because he was responsible for getting all the desks in line and getting everything in order and putting out the paper and pens. He says.
Well, that makes it sound as though we only do academic classes, which of course we do. People can come for language classes or history or science.
Dad did the history of ancient Rome for quite a long time.
Yeah. But Phil, we also have. I belong to Ballarat U3A, and it's one of Victoria. Well, it's the strongest regional U3A in Victoria. We've got, I think it's 1,200 members and 123 different classes. And, some of them, there's all sorts of dancing, including belly dancing.
Hang on, belly dancing at the University of the Third Age? Come on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, it's cracked on from when Dad was there, I can tell you that.
And Tai Chi, yoga, bike riding groups, walking groups. It's just fantastic. It's a fantastic organisation. And if that sort of thing is not your cup of tea, of course, there's the senior six clubs where, they go into bingo and cards and things like that. Plenty of choice for people.
Thank you.
The older people in the community.
Yeah. Thanks, Miriam. 1300 800 222. Back to Professor Michelle Lim and Dr. Rosanne Freak-Poli. We think loneliness is increasing, Michelle and Rosanne, don't we? Rosanne, to you?
I believe our awareness is increasing. I think that COVID, it's still influencing us. The restrictions in response to the pandemic changed the structure of how our daily lives were, and we're regulated very closely about our social interactions, and that made a lot of people still wary now about these. And some people post-COVID have chosen to reduce the intensity or socialise less compared to their pre-COVID selves because they realised how busy their lives were. And then while others are struggling to have more social connection after COVID. So it's gone it can go both ways. And I think that if you think about social connectors, the people that are in communities that are doing a lot, if they suddenly decide, actually, that was rather busy, COVID reminded me it was nice not to do so much, they're not connecting people as frequently. So I can sort of see how it can create a problem.
Yeah. All right, Bridget from Richmond. Hello, Bridget.
Hi, how are you?
Not bad.
I was just thinking about, all these wonderful things like the U3A and the gentleman who sings at church Choirs, community choirs are fantastic to meet other people, especially of all ages. So I think...
Don't you have to be able to sing, Bridget?
Well, hello. I mean, do you have to be able to walk? Do you have to be able to run? You just go along. You know? This is one of the biggest tropes. I knew you were going to ask that. You're just going to say it, weren't you? My teacher at primary school told me never to sing. Oh, my God.
Well, it's true. It happened to me, Bridget. I'm still suffering from the trauma, you see. Although a very dear friend of mine says anybody can sing, and you're of that persuasion, aren't you?
I am of that. But the beautiful thing is, you know, it's great if you're not religious, you just join a community choir, and then, because that's where all the togetherness used to be, I guess. And so now you've got these options. In Melbourne, there are sing-along choirs where you just pop in whenever you want, you know, just sing along, or ones that you can join up with. And one of the things I really like is that if you start and you don't know anybody, you can be actually very much doing your own thing until you do get to know people. It's not like tennis where you've got to find a partner.
So you can come along to a choir and just belt out, you know, the long and winding road or something, and until someone says, you really can't sing, can you? And offers to help, perhaps.
Well, no one's ever said it to me, but I've heard a few odd notes come out of me, I can tell you.
Thanks, Bridget. Bye-bye. See, community choirs, they're very big in lots of parts of Australia. I'm not sure everywhere. James also wants to talk about book clubs. Well, book clubs are everywhere, aren't they, James?
They sure are. I rocked up to one in 2016. How you doing?
Good, yeah. Now, tell me, are you a member of more than one?
I'm in. There's the one I'm in, and we started with like maybe 10 chapters in Melbourne, and now there's like 100 around Australia.
Yeah.
So it's just like it was crazy. Like I rocked up because I moved to a new town, and I was in my 20s, and it was really hard for me to make friends. Like that first year in Melbourne, I was bloody lonely, and then there's this book club, and I'm like, okay, it's in a pub though, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit weird. And I go along, and sure enough, there's a dude there with a book. I'm like, are you the book club? He said, yeah, I just started it. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Oh, hang on, that's a great story. What, so he's there alone with his book, and he says, I just started the book club. It's only me.
Yeah. And then there's two of us, and then we all meet at the same, this small group.
What was the book? What was the book, James?
Oh, the first book we read was American Gods by Neil Gaiman, believe it or not. So that was back in 2016, and now here we are. It's 2023. We've come through COVID, and now we're reading bloody Hag's Seed by Margaret Atwood.
Oh,
and there's 100 chapters around the country and a couple overseas as well. And it's just, it's really like, from a guy who didn't read much or talk much, I'm reading more.
You're doing pretty well. You're doing pretty well at the moment, James.
But I would love. I would just love to get it out there, and that was something that really was a lifesaver.
Good on you
in 2015. Yeah,
good on you, James. Thank you. That's great. That's a great story. Yeah, I mean, Rosanne, book clubs. Book clubs are a terrific way to do it too, aren't they?
I love that story, and I love this idea that you can just start one. If
he goes along to the pub and there's a bloke with a book, he says, "Is this the book club?" Yeah, I just started it.
I love that, and I think that's another resource I'm going to add to my Australian-wide social activities to advertise along with Michelle's Ending Loneliness Together directory. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, interesting. Ian's in the bush. G'day, Ian.
How you doing, Phil?
Not bad. Whereabouts are you?
Steinfeld in South Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Out in the bush.
Okay. How long you been out in the bush?
I've been out here on my own for 6 years. I've been on my own for 11 years.
Okay.
But as I told you, producer, like being lonely, I choose not to be. But I've got a secret weapon in that.
What's that?
I've got a big black Labrador dog. And if I feel a little bit lonely, because we've got major roadworks and that going up on the Sturt Highway, just where I live.
Yeah.
And I went around today, and because I always see these traffic controls, and I thought, geez, it must be a boring job sitting there 10 hours a day doing nothing. So I went and had a chat, or I'll drive up to a park and bay, get out, have a cup of coffee and a sandwich, and sit there. Caravanners and that pull up. They make a beeline straight for the dog. They're not coming to see me. They're coming to see the dog. And I have a chat. you get to talk to people.
There's a great truth in there. Good on you, Ian. There's a great truth in that, isn't there, Rosanne and Michelle, that people do want to talk. I mean, people do want to connect. We're here. That's what we are. We're humans are built for this, aren't we? And we need to. As much as we have a need to breathe and eat and drink and seek shelter, seeking company is also part of us, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that humans are intrinsically social animals. We do rely on communities in order to thrive and flourish, and we often, though, overestimate, and maybe worry too much about what people might think, and actually then try to avoid those social interactions. And we do know that, if you're lonely, social anxiety and actually being anxious about having that interaction isn't helpful. So it's really about trying to build your social confidence and just say hi, or just have those little conversations just to start things off. We don't have to kind of make a new best friend right away. It's about just saying hi and kind of starting small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. I like to think that what we're doing here in Talk Radio is also part of it. We have conversations every night with people, many of whom we know this for a fact, that more than a quarter of Australian households are single-person households. We know that, and broadcast radio can be an important connective tissue here, don't you think, Michelle?
Absolutely. In fact, I think that a lot of your listeners might actually have a positive feeling and relationship with you, Phil. Just hearing your voice and this consistency that you're here.
Just because we're here and live, we're here talking to you. We actually are talking to you. You're not listening to a podcast. You're not listening to a tape. It's us live. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that actually really brings relief to people. A lot of people who are by themselves or who might feel lonely, to always have the consistent person and to hear those interactions and to hear about.
Well, sadly, our hour is up, and that's unfortunate because it's been a most interesting conversation. Associate Professor Michelle Lim, thank you for joining us, and Dr. Rosanne Freak-Poli, thank you for joining us as well. It's been illuminating. Thank you both of you.
Thank you.
And thanks for the texts and calls as well. Look, there's stuff out there. There are clubs, there's groups, and people do want to meet and do want to talk. So act on it.
You've been listening to a Nightlife podcast. For more great conversations about the issues that impact you, as well as features on travel and food, head to the Nightlife webpage. You'll find it at abc.net.au/nightlife. You don't need to be a night owl to enjoy the nightlife.